Ask a blessing upon the work we're about to do this evening. Oh, gracious Heavenly Father, you have provided so much to us. We thank you. I thank you that you have granted us a free country, that we can do work in a democracy, and that we pray you would consider us to be good stewards of our community, and that you would grant us wisdom and courage to do the right thing. In your Son's name we pray. Amen. And now, Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I call this meeting of the Spotsylvania County Planning Commission to order with 100% attendance. We have a quorum. Planning update and announcements. We have a new face in the at the end of the table down here.
Yes, sir. There are only a couple of announcements. The first is you do have a new SUP case. It is a tower case at the Hazelwild Farm, SUP 1507. It will be before the TRC on November 12th. It's for a 150-foot monopole. The other announcement is you have the financial disclosure forms at your seats, and Paulette asks that you return those forms by December 2nd. Everything else on the planning update is up to date.
Thank you. Next item is a review and approval of the minutes of the last meeting. Everyone should have had a chance to examine them. Were there any corrections?
So move for approval.
Motion's been made to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Let's proceed to a vote. They're approved unanimously with one abstention. Next item is unfinished business. In our last meeting, we were talking about those accessory dwelling units, and we'll do so again this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Patrick White, Planning Department. At the last meeting, we spoke about accessory dwelling units, and we had a few questions. Importantly, though, I thought the most important question was pretty obvious. It was related to connection fees from the Utilities Department. Those fees are summarized in your executive summary of your memo. I did check with Brent and our Utilities Department, who informed me that there would be connection fees. There was a sewer connection fee that could be avoided if the same lateral was used, but the way the ordinance is set up now, the fees are detailed in your memo.
So, as I recall, the sense of the commission was that that an accessory dwelling unit is more of an accessory than a standalone property, and that the assessment of additional fees was not desirable. I know that everybody who wants to get more money out of taxpayers certainly is happy about that. Did anyone else have any feelings? I mean, if we're going to advertise an amendment to the ordinance, can't we say that an accessory unit has to go through the water or sewer connection of the existing property?
I don't believe so, not based on the current ordinance. As I understand it.
Well, and that's my point, is aren't we going to be amending the zoning ordinance with this accessory dwelling unit addition?
We would be amending yes, one section of it. We can certainly see about amending the other section, but I don't think we can do it fast enough.
Well, I realize that we don't have the authority to amend the ordinance in any case, but we can recommend to the Board of Supervisors. And, okay. Go ahead.
Yes, because I'm very concerned about those connection fees. When you add them up, someone would have to pay almost $10,000.
I think it's more than $10,000.
Yeah, it's a little under $13,000.
And there are a lot of seniors who can't do that. And that, I mean, to me, we're having this and we're promoting this because we want seniors or someone who's disabled that they can afford to have a place where someone can care for them, watch over them, take them to the doctor, However, not to charge them. I mean, that really bothers me. Now, let me ask you this. When I read this, let me ask you this question. It seems as though that is if it's attached in some way, that they could use the accessibility that's already there through that house that's already there if there's a home there. Am I correct?
Well, the point of the ordinance is not to have it physically attached. It would
I
be
know.
to have the underground utilities attached to the existing facility, that the water and sewer would come off some sort of main from the primary building.
I hope it would be temporary. I'd hate for somebody
Temporary
to pay
or
over
even
$12,000 and have to.
accessory. Or are we talking only about the temporary ones?
No, as I understand right now, we're talking about the accessory dwelling units.
Right. But it-
Is there a percentage discount you're looking for, or a complete, absolutely none?
Well,
of the
when they
assessments or
charge
connection
this
fees?
fee, what does it cost the county? As long as the plumbing is being paid for by the homeowner, my impression is it doesn't cost them anything additional.
Doesn't cost who?
The county. They're not actually going out and extending additional pipes or, right?
Mr. Stuber?
No, well, they wouldn't be extending. It's possible that they would extend a new water line, and I suppose it would also be possible they could extend a sewer lateral if needed.
Well, they wouldn't do it for one unit. I mean, if somebody goes out and applies for one and says, "Oh, wait, I'm putting up 13 grand. You need to do this," and then it ends up costing hundreds of thousands. I can't imagine. That was the intent.
Let me just throw an example. Forget about the accessory dwellings. What if somebody just wanted to extend it to a barn or to a shed or to a workshop or something like that on a property? We wouldn't be looking at any additional fees from the county. We would just be looking at plumbing fees
That sounds
and
correct.
setting it right up on the same water sewer metering system that's with the primary dwelling. So why would there be a difference if we want to call this an accessory dwelling?
The difference would be it would be a completely independent and habitable structure than a barn or a shed. I mean, there would be someone there.
So where's the difference in the expense to the county? How do you justify the fee?
Well,
If we would not do that to maintain livestock or a home profession or whatever like that, how do we justify that for putting your grandmother into that dwelling?
And Mr. White, we're not asking you necessarily
I understand.
to comment. Figure out.
no, I understand. And, for the sake of dialogue, I mean, I think that perhaps the intent of these fees is to recap some of the monies that are spent on the greater costs, the capital facility costs of having a water and a sewer system. That's
But we pay
a portion of this.
We pay our monthly water bill for that, do we not?
Well, yeah, but you also paid when or your developer or whomever built your house paid one of these fees to.
Do I understand correctly that if we approve the change, you're saying that an accessory unit will be required to connect to water and sewer independently?
If available, from what I'm understanding from the Utilities Department, it would need to connect independently to the system, as
Yeah,
it's an independent unit.
I can't support that either.
No, I didn't think anybody had that intention.
We are defeating that purpose.
Right.
Well, let's consider, if you want to consider pursuing it forward, perhaps you'd consider sending it to public hearing with that condition, that we take it to public hearing and work with the Utilities Department to try and reduce the impact fees.
No,
Or
I don't
eliminate
think.
them.
I don't think the utility department understands. We're not talking about trying to reduce it. We're talking about eliminating it.
Absolutely.
I don't know if I can accomplish that. I can certainly take it to them and try.
My position on this is if and when an accessory unit requires a separate connection, I understand it. But as a matter of code, I can't see that. I don't support that. That if if otherwise they can connect to their existing service, they should be able to do that, whether it be water, sewer, or whatever it is.
Yeah, Dominion would not charge a homeowner additional if the electricity were provided on the same meter.
Right.
So Comcast wouldn't charge extra for cable, or Verizon wouldn't charge more for phone service.
I don't guess so.
Well, I have heard of other communities that have enacted something like this, where they've waived or, where they've amended their ordinances to not have these impact fees. I'm sure I could find a good example and work some language into it.
Well, and I
See
believe
if
if
that
you
would
check
work.
with the county attorney, I don't believe we're allowed to charge impact fees, per se.
I think he's
Perhaps that was the
calling it
wrong
that.
word.
Yes, he's
I think
calling it
impact fees is the wrong word. And the fees and what's required as far as utilities will all be set out elsewhere, of course, in the county code. It's not something that's set out in the zoning ordinance. I think it might be helpful if either Patrick, takes these issues back to utilities and can come back and hopefully explain how things are set up and why things are required, or maybe have somebody from utilities come explain, how things are set up and when things will be required based on the setup at the site and the ins and outs of that. But as far as, setting those fees, that's not something that comes, through the zoning ordinance, of course.
Well, then we need to figure out how this commission, which seems to be solidly opposed to this mandate, can make it happen, whether it's this current planned amendment to the zoning ordinance, and I believe we would seek counsel, or guidance rather, from council on how to make this happen.
Now, may I ask
Unless
you a
there's
question?
objection, okay.
All right. Now, we talk about the hookup fees. Now, let's go back to if we're in the country, and you say, okay, you got a setback so far, and then you got to have another setback for your sewer lines, okay? You have to have so many feet. So therefore, that would apply to this accessory building also?
Yes, all setback requirements would still be, just like if it were a setback for a garage or
And water
any
and sewer.
structural building.
Yeah, and water and sewer. Yeah. So therefore, if you go in and you build a home, okay?
Right.
And then you're going to put this accessory building there. Okay, the home has met those requirements, all right? But when
Right.
you put the accessory building, that's a difference there.
No, well, per this draft code, it would still need to meet the principal units setbacks.
And it would require, in the case of it being a rural home served by water and septic, it would have to be on the existing well, and it would be on the existing septic field, so that if the lot was perked for 4 bedrooms and the existing home was 4 bedrooms, then they really couldn't build an accessory dwelling unit with a bedroom, that was the intent of the discussion coming up to now. But in the event that they had more capacity, then they would be able to attach that to the well and to the septic system.
I think
Okay.
I see that as the only instance, the only example where they would have to have a separate septic and maybe a separate well facility. But if you're hooking up on county water and sewer, it's just a matter of running a pipe and put a T in it and you're hooked up. So I think that's ridiculous to require somebody to have a separate hookup. You're talking about 2 bills now. And people are paying because of the amount of the water they use anyway.
and
In
that's,
fact, per gallon, after it goes over the minimum amount, you're actually paying more per gallon than you were the first end of the bill. So it would behoove everybody to do it that way.
well, we say.
Yeah, Mr. Thompson makes a very good point. The utility department would be better served if people had larger water bills.
Yeah, we
Okay,
don't need to, we're trying to help people, okay? And that's one thing in America today. It's, I'm not going to raise your taxes, but I'm going to get you over here. We don't want to get anybody. We want to provide, and that's what we are looking for, I believe, Mr. Chairman.
that it is. And we stopped you in the part of your presentation.
Oh, it's quite all right. I mean, it's an important subject. The other 2 items were regarding what we were calling flipping of the ADU. That's codified into the draft ordinance in italics on item B under 23-514.3B. Now reading, an existing principal dwelling may be classified as the accessory dwelling unit prior to construction of a new principal dwelling unit, provided the accessory otherwise meets the regulations. That's about it. Where do we go from here? I understand this was something you were interested in getting done quickly. Without, perhaps you would consider approving it for a public hearing with the condition that we find a way to have zero water sewer connection costs.
I believe that's the consensus of the commission.
Not just the cost, but the unnecessary extra hookup. That's what we're talking about.
That's the distinction, the unnecessary hookup.
Yeah, if there has to be for whatever
Has to be,
reason.
there has to be, but otherwise, I don't want it to be a requirement.
No, it's with water, county water and sewer, you wouldn't necessarily have to have an individual hookup for the extra dwelling. You can hook into the lines on the property, and that's the way I'd want that done.
I could proceed forward with that as a motion, or just bring this back to you next month without a public hearing. It's up to you.
Let's proceed to public hearing. The chair will entertain a motion that we advertise a public hearing.
So move.
Motion's been made
Second.
and seconded. Let's proceed to vote unless anyone else has anything to say. We're good. Unanimous. Public hearing we shall have.
All right. I'll get with Leon and Carl and the utilities folks, and we'll figure something out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is one of the aforementioned public hearings related to a rezoning, one of our favorite things, R150002, Plantation Forest and Massaponax Church are giving us Plantation Woods.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Floor computer, please. The applicant is requesting a rezoning to Residential 2 cluster. The property is currently zoned Agriculture 2, which would allow a by right subdivision of 26 lots with a minimum lot size of 5 acres. A rezoning to R2 will allow for 132 clustered single-family detached lots with the preservation of open space. Here's the zoning map with the subject property hatched in red. The property is surrounded primarily by agriculturally zoned property. This would include Gunnery Hills here to the east and the existing plantation forest, and then some residential 1 across Massaponax Church Road. This is the Battle Park Lake subdivision. And also adjacent is MU3 zoned property, which is the development known as the Village at Courthouse Commons. Here's an aerial photo of the property with the property again hatched in red. You'll see Plantation Forest Drive terminates here in a cul-de-sac right at the subject property. The lots on Plantation Forest Drive range from a 1/4 acre to a 1/2 acre in size and are served by public utilities. And this development was developed in the 1980s. As I said, to the east is Gunnery Hills Estates. These are larger lots starting at 2 acres, and Battle Park Lakes across Massaponax Church Road. Those lots range in size from 1/2 acre to 1 acre. The property to the west that I mentioned is the mixed-use development. It has not yet begun to develop this portion. They do have an approved preliminary plat, and they have a site plan in-house now being reviewed. Here's the GDP that's been submitted. I'd like to start out by noting that this property is designated on the future land use map with 2 future land use designations, mixed use and rural residential. With this split use designation, the property could be developed at a denser ratio with a mixed use rezoning at 2 acres or more, at 2 units per acre or more. Higher density such as this would not be consistent with the existing plantation forest. The applicant's proposal with 1 unit per acre is consistent with an average lot size of 17,679 square feet, which comes to 0.4 acres approximately. This is not only consistent with the future land use map, but with the existing development, particularly plantation forest. The main entrance to the proposed development will be on Massaponax Church Road, which is identified on the plan with the red arrow. This new access point will provide an additional point of access for the plantation forest residents, as there are 2 interparcel connections off Plantation Forest Drive that I've highlighted with the yellow circles. I'll point out again that the current cul-de-sac, this is Plantation Forest, extends through here, and it terminates here in this cul-de-sac. Right now, this is a temporary cul-de-sac, but it will not be pushed through as part of this development. The proposal is to make this a permanent cul-de-sac, and then it'll be turned over to VDOT. So you're not going to have that traffic having a straight shot through to Massaponax Church Road. Public streets will be provided throughout the development, in addition to 2 future parcel interconnections that I've identified with the blue arrows. One is shown at the terminus of Godwin Drive, which will ultimately connect to the village at Courthouse Commons. The other future connection is shown to the east at the terminus of Greenway Drive, which connects to undeveloped agriculture 2 zoned property. The applicant did prepare a traffic impact analysis, which was reviewed by both VDOT and the county's traffic engineer. Improvements were not warranted for this proposed development. The applicant has committed, though, through their proffer statement to construct a right turn lane on Massaponax Church Road into the development. Sidewalks and streetlights will be provided throughout, and the lots will be served by public water and sewer. The applicant is providing approximately 48% of the total acreage in open space. That comes to 63.65 acres. This exceeds the county requirement, the code requirement of 30%. Additionally, the applicant commits to preserve the entire 63.65 acres with a recorded restrictive covenant that will prohibit any development of the entire 63.65 acres. The Department of Historic Resources identified the project as within the Myers Hill zone and the core area of the Spotsylvania Courthouse battlefield. The applicant conducted a Phase 1 cultural resources study, and from that identified various earthworks and rifle pit locations. These have been identified on the plan, are primarily located within the open space, which I just mentioned will be preserved with the restrictive covenants. And they're here throughout. And they were, like I said, rifle pits and trenches. And all of those have been located then within this open space. Based on the recommendations included in that Phase 1, the applicant has also proffered to complete further study, including a Phase 1 military site survey prior to the submission of the preliminary plat. Back in January of 2014, the applicant hosted a community meeting. This meeting was very well attended, and a number of concerns were raised by the citizens. A significant number of residents in Plantation Forest raised the concern of additional traffic on Plantation Forest Drive. The proposal at that time only provided 1 point of access, which was through Plantation Forest Drive to Courthouse Road. This development will generate a total of 1,256 trips per day, so it was definitely a concern of the citizens. The applicant heard that and ultimately acquired additional property and has provided the main entrance to the development on Massaponax Church Road, which we see here tonight. With the main entrance on Massaponax Church Road and the interparcel connections through Plantation Forest Drive, the applicant is providing multiple points of access for both developments. Additionally, Plantation Forest residents requested fencing between their lots and the proposed lots. And specifically, those are these lots that run right through here. And the applicant has provided privacy fencing that will be maintained by the Future Homeowners Association. There were also concerns raised about access and maintenance of the existing pond. There's a pond located right here. And as you can see, that the pond is actually owned by multiple property owners in plantation forest, and a portion of the pond is on the subject property. The only portion of the pond that may be legally accessed by any future Plantation Woods property owners will be the portion that's on the property and within that common area. And maintenance of that will be by the homeowners association as well. The applicant has submitted proffers. Tonight, you do have a red line copy before you. There's no substantive changes. Those were revisions that address county attorney comments to approve the document as to form, but nothing different than what I'm presenting tonight. The applicant is committed to developing the property in conformance with the generalized plan that we just looked at. They have committed that the property shall be developed only for and no more than 132 single-family detached units. All single-family detached units will have a minimum of 2,300 square feet in size. The applicant commits to the general design, materials, and architectural features and improvements for the units in accordance with the elevations that you see here on your screen. They have also committed to creating the homeowners association and record a declaration of covenants and restrictions. And again, the HOA will be responsible for the maintenance of all open space. The applicant commits to using only dark sky or similar style of shielded lighting. They will have several entrance monument signs at the various entrance points, one on Massaponax Church Road and then one off Plantation Forest Drive. And they have proffered this elevation, this architectural rendering that you see here. They have committed to dedicate right-of-way and also to construct the right turn lane and taper from Massaponax Church Road into the development. The value of the turn lane is $120,000, and they have been given credit, an in-kind transportation credit, since this is not a required improvement. This is above and beyond. The applicant commits to preserve the entire 63.65 acres of open space with a recorded restrictive covenant that will run with the property. With this commitment, the applicant is restricting any future development of the open space provided. The applicant commits to provide a total of $19,592 per unit above and beyond the by right development potential. That would be over 106 units. The total amount includes both cash and the in-kind transportation credit I just mentioned. So the total cash amount that will be paid per unit is $18,460 over 106 units. And I'll provide more detailed calculations in a couple more slides. The applicant commits to conduct a Phase 1 military site survey on the property prior to submission of the preliminary plat, and any appropriate mitigation that is a result of that survey will be completed. The first table here shows the estimated population and student generation for the new development, the existing conditions, and the impact on public facilities. Keep in mind the capacity information does not factor in all of the approved rezonings and by right developments that we have out there. It's just this development compared to the capacity. The school projections are based on final enrollment figures as of September 30th, 2015. And you will see that currently Massaponax High is over capacity. The second table reflects the applicant's proposed capital facility impact mitigation compared with the county estimated impact. These calculations are based on the newly adopted proffer policy that was adopted on October 13th with an amount of $25,805 per single-family detached unit. The capital facilities impact is calculated based on the number of units above and beyond the by right development. And I know I've mentioned that, but they have a by right development potential of 26 lots. Subtract that from their 132, the impact is calculated on 106 lots. The county's estimated total impact is $2,735,330. The applicant has committed to contribute $19,592 per single-family detached unit for a total of $2,076,762.60. This amount includes the in-kind transportation improvement, with a value of $120,000. And again, this is for the right turn lane that will be constructed on Massaponax Church Road. The total amount of cash to be paid per unit is $18,460. The applicant's mitigation does fall short of the county's policy by $658,567.40.
Excuse me, could I ask a question? Based on property values and property taxes, how long would it take to make up that $600,000?
And that's what's on this slide right here.
Okay, excuse me.
No, that's okay. The applicant provided their own fiscal impact analysis, which projected the development will generate a net fiscal benefit of $549,000 annually. Staff completed a separate analysis. Our model is a little bit different. It doesn't use the market values and some of the other off-site revenues that the applicants did, but we did use the same comparables. So ours is a little different. But the comparables used for the detached units included Everett Estates, Breckenridge Estates, and Woods at Breckenridge. The applicant, as I had mentioned, has proffered a minimum square footage of 2,300 square feet, so we only use the comparables of 2,300 square feet and larger. This value, average assessed value, came to $359,565. With that, the development shows an annual fiscal benefit of $89,790 annually. The board's 30-year policy allows fiscal revenues to offset the expected impacts, and in this case, those would be offset within 8 years. The second table here reflects the impacts the development will have on the local economy. You'll see 230 jobs generated and almost $40 million in total economic activity. Key findings identified from staff's analysis: this proposal is appropriate and compatible with both the comprehensive plan and the existing development. The main entrance on Massaponax Church Road and the interparcel connections through Plantation Forest Drive provides multiple points of access for both the existing and proposed development. The applicant is providing approximately 48% of the total acreage and open space, which exceeds the county code of 30%. Further, the applicants preserved that 63.65 acres with a recorded restrictive covenant that will run with the property. The development provides fencing between Plantation Forest lots and the proposed lots, which was requested by the adjacent property owners. The proposed layout is sensitive to the existing historic resources on the property and will protect those resources within that open space, which will be preserved with the restrictive covenants. While the applicant's proposed capital facilities impact mitigation falls short of the county's adopted policy, the projected fiscal revenues are expected to cover impacts within 8 years. Based on the key findings I just presented, staff recommends approval of the request with the revised proffer document presented to you tonight, the red line in front of you. And again, that red line document includes revisions that address technical comments that were raised by the county attorney to approve the document as to form. And that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer questions.
Yes, I just wanted to get back to the proffers. The proffers seems to be the bullseye on every application, so that's probably where we should spend most of our time. The committee, the proffer committee, submitted a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors. They approved that, except for one element, and please correct me where I may be wrong. It was the debt service credit. Otherwise, they approved it in total except for the debt service credit, which is a big one. As I understand it, and correct me if I'm wrong here, that's sort of under appeal right now. The Board of Supervisors entertained being addressed by our chairman here, as well as one of the other members of the committee, and they did not make a decision. So that leads me to believe that they are thinking about how they want to decide that debt service credit. So how does this application, unfortunately, it comes before us before we have a final decision by the Board of Supervisors. I know you're kind of saying we have a final decision, but we really don't. So how does that compare if we were to remove the debt service credit issue? how does the current application compare with what was approved by the Board of Supervisors?
If the debt service credit was included, then what the applicant has put forth would be consistent with that.
Okay. And the way I'm leaning right now is because that's still up in the air and we can't just keep, tabling these things. I think that's an important point. Thank you.
Yeah, I was at the meeting, and I think that the Board of Supervisors were grasping the complexity of the issue. And I believe that at the next meeting, they will address it, and it will probably be before this application gets to the Board of Supervisors. But this isn't, well, are there any other questions? Then let's hear from the applicant, who will further inform us.
Mr. Chairman and other members of the Planning Commission, my name is Charlie Payne with law firm Herschel Fleischer, who represent the applicant. I want to thank you all for your time and attention to this matter and for your public service to the county, and also want to thank staff for its presentation tonight. I feel like staff has covered just about every major component of this, and I won't spend too much time on this. I will just state that in regards to this project, very quickly, it is consistent with the comprehensive plan. It is consistent with the surrounding density and developments in the area. We did obviously have a community meeting. We heard the expression of the surrounding community in regards to their concerns on traffic and buffers and setbacks over the past year, almost year plus, maybe longer. My client has been working with adjoining property owners to the south to have this second access point, our main access point, off Massaponax Church Road. We hope that will address the concerns of our neighbors. It will also give them a separate access point as well versus going out to only the 208. And then hopefully in the future we'll have even more access points going both east and west from the site. So we think that's a real plus. Our neighbors were also concerned about the, preserving the trees and the open space. As you know, this project was at one time the second phase of plantation forest that was never developed. So folks in plantation forest have been accustomed to all these trees in the back side, the south side of this area. As you know, as staff noted, the cul-de-sac goes actually into our property, and they have been seeing trees for years. Well, we're going to maintain a good portion of that as we're preserving over 48% of the site and keeping the natural vegetation and trees in place. Also, as staff noted, the home prices will be in the range of not as low as the assessed values. In our opinion, it'll be higher than that, about $425,000. We've committed to certain architectural features and certain square footage to ensure that, so we think that will be a real plus. When we do our fiscal impact analysis, we look at market values, and we also look at other revenue generated, just not by personal property tax or real estate tax. In fact, I'm not sure if the personal property tax is part of the staff's analysis, but it should be, as well as other taxes. And off-site, as we all know, we want to see the Courthouse Village area commercial component expand and put a greater footprint and a greater center in this particular area. That's going to require folks to shop there. It's going to require folks to eat there, not just at lunchtime. So we think having this development nearby that location for folks who don't want to go all the way to the east to eat and shop will have an opportunity to do that from our site. And their median incomes, about $150,000 or so, will also provide disposable income to help develop those areas. So we think that we'll also be a good neighbor to that extent. The staff has gone through the proffers. We've also proffered certain right-of-way along Massaponax Church Road, which is part of the county's thoroughfare plan for a future expansion of Massaponax Church Road, and we've proffered, although it was not warranted under our TIA, a turn lane, a right turn lane, a 100-foot taper into the site. We believe that this also will provide benefits to those traveling along Massaponax Church Road. In regards to the proffers, I know that this well-respected board had passed a proffer package did not include the debt service credit to the Board of Supervisors, which eventually passed the proffer guidelines without the debt service credit being part of that. Let's also not forget that prior to the proffers being revised, the guidelines now, these are not a requirement, but the guidelines to $25,000 plus, it was at $33,000 plus. And we were proposing, and there were many, many applications that came not only through this board, but to the Board of Supervisors that had proffers, cash proffers, much, much less than what we're proffering here. In fact, I bet this proffer package for purposes of this residential, for only residential development, is probably the largest that this board has ever seen, including, we went above and beyond, if you will, what this board had advised for providing an extra $120,000 in in-kind proffers. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. I know there were some concerns provided to staff as to phasing of this project and where we would start, where construction vehicles would come from. We have provided in our proffers that the right turn lane off of Massaponax Church Road will be part of the initial phasing of the development. So we're going to start south and go north. So the construction vehicles, et cetera, are going to come from that Massaponax Church Road location and not through Plantation Drive. As many as you may know, doesn't include curb, gutter, or sidewalks. But this new development will. I think I've covered all the issues. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have and certainly respond to any public comments that so require.
If I may, what's the estimated time of build-out?
4 to 6 years estimated time.
It's going to be pretty fast. Thank you.
When we talked about the $120,000 in-kind proffer, did that include the right-of-way? When you talked about the $120,000 credit, did that include the right-of-way that you were talking about proffering?
It does not.
So you have not
Did not count the
assessed that,
right-of-way.
give that any value?
No, sir.
Thank you very much.
Just to add on to Mr. Thompson's question, as you may know, many of the lots in the immediate areas, especially the ones that were part of our comparables, are pretty much sold out. So this is going to be an area that should be popular and attractive to future buyers.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Let's hear what the public has to say. I'll call this public hearing to an opening and remind the public that on the DS, when they're sharing their thoughts and concerns, as well as if they care to support the application, we certainly welcome that. The little box on the DS will have a green light, and that light indicates that you have 3 minutes. If you're representing a group, please identify that at the beginning, and you'll be granted 5 minutes. When you get down to 1 minute left, the light will turn yellow, and then at the conclusion of your allotted time, it will be red. And we hope at that point that you will have been able to wrap up your comments. So those are the rules. Did anyone sign up to speak?
Yes, sir. I have Carol Dumbrov, followed by Sabrina Harper.
State your name and your address, and we appreciate that.
Carol Dumbrov, 6315 Plantation Forest Drive. First thing is I keep hearing how this is going to add jobs to the community. And one of the things, as a person that works in Northern Virginia, if it's doing that, then there's a lot of users on the road with me every day going up to Northern Virginia that shouldn't be. I don't see it adding any jobs. I see people coming down this way and traffic getting worse and worse. But my concern is when we talk about the housing density and such, we have not just this community, but we have a lot of other communities that have been approved for building and such that I see going up. I know, I think it's Vacos or whatever, that's expanding considerably. So this is just adding to that growth. And I guess my thought process is a lot of us have moved out this way to get away from that Northern Virginia sprawl. Also, at least when I go up around the marketplace and all that area, I see a lot of empty apartments and things that are still there. Filled, I'm just not aware of it possibly. So and I don't really see where the growth that we've had thus far has been really helping with small businesses and such, at least when I look down around the Giant area where there's more growth and all there, that the small businesses are turning over considerably quick. The traffic on Plantation Forest, I know that as they talked about Plantation Forest is it's a quiet community. We have a lot of people that walk for exercise, they walk their pets. We have a lot of school children, kids bike riding and that type thing. So the additional traffic on Plantation is a concern. The development is going to add by my estimation, is about 400 more cars. So, and not having construction traffic on Plantation would be a great thing. If they can keep that off of there, that would be great. I still think we're going to have a lot of traffic on Plantation Forest just because it's human nature. Why would you go all the way out Massaponax Road if you can get to 208 and 95 quicker? Getting in and out of the development right now is quite difficult in the mornings and sometimes in the evenings and even on weekends. I know I talked to Ms. Kimberly today, and she was talking about, I guess it's rated an E on the AM and F on the PM, and I sounds really bad to me, but I understand that this is not supposed to make it worse. I don't know how it couldn't. I don't know what the lower numbers are, but I can't see it making it any better for darn sure. So the congestion, I just see additional congestion added to it. Additionally, right now, the traffic already on 208, even after the widening, and I lived here before we widened it, and it used to back way up, it's getting so busy right now. It's almost becoming like a Route 3 Junior type situation. I guess my thoughts and concerns is possibly maybe de-densifying or reducing the number of houses and keeping it either agricultural or R1. Why connecting to Plantation at all? Can we just out Massaponax Church Road? So, and I mean, even if, I don't know if anybody here lives on it, but just the bridge repair cost us a lot of issues. So, and the other thing was, like where they're talking about the 30-foot area, possibly leaving the trees and all there for a larger buffer area along with the privacy fence.
Thank you very much.
Sabrina Harper, followed by Maggie Johnson.
Hi, first of all, I want to thank you for providing me with the opportunity to speak before you. My name is Sabrina Harper, and I live at 6313 Plantation Forest Drive, and I've been in this home for 22 years. I admire the builders for all of the listening to a lot of our complaints and implementing those into the changes. But some of my concerns are surrounding Plantation Forest with $500,000 homes is going to dwindle my real estate. The homes that are currently there are 200,000, 300,000 homes, and you're going to completely surround us with these elaborate homes. That's going to lower my real estate value. I'm also concerned with the connection to Massaponax Church Road. Anyone who travels on Massaponax Church Road knows that it's a busy single lane, two-lane road, and this is going to provide a cut through. So I would ask that if they're going to connect it, that they at least put some speed bumps or something to prevent or at least deter people from cutting through onto Plantation Forest. Plantation Forest, as he stated, it's a mile-long road from the cul-de-sac to 208. It does not have sidewalks. It does not have any place for people to walk. And as people park their cars on the sides of the roads, the buses can barely travel through. So if you add additional traffic onto Plantation Forest Drive, it's going to be a problem. I just want to say that I'm completely against 120 some odd houses surrounding me and 400 and some odd cars coming through Plantation Forest Drive. Thank you.
Maggie Johnson, followed by Kenneth Fowler.
Hello, my name is Maggie Johnson. I live at 10102 Stanley Court. And I also have concerns that this woman voiced. Are you planning on putting a stoplight at the end of, or the entrance to our development? Because right now it is, at times during the day, almost impossible to get out of there. And I have lived in that house since over 20 years, almost 30 years. So I know what the traffic was like then, and I know what it is like now. And I think they are going to use our neighborhood as a bypass, so that they don't have to go all the way up and to the left to get to their development. I think they will use our neighborhood as a bypass. It's quicker, it's easier, not as much traffic as having to go all the way up to the courthouse. So I do have a lot of concerns, and we do have a lot of kids that play out there, ride their bikes on the road. And I think that is a main concern. And people, as she said, do park their cars, and they do not park them off the road. They park them in the road. And there are plenty of times when you have to wait for somebody else to come through before you can go through. And then you're adding not only the 130-some homes that they want to build, you're also adding 200 more homes that are going to be built supposedly around this neighborhood. And where are all those people going to go? That is just going to be an immense amount of traffic in our neighborhood and through our neighborhood. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Kenneth Fowler. I live at 7212 Plantation Forest Drive. I've been a resident there for 14 years. I am very opposed to adding additional traffic density to Plantation Forest Drive. I've already approved the subdivision that has a connector. Cannot even get out onto 208, and that is any time of the day. I think the original plan for the courthouse bypass was an additional traffic light, but that never happened. I do applaud that they did change the entrance to the subdivision.
As no one else had signed up, there is not a requirement, so that if anyone still wanted to speak, they're certainly welcome at this time. Please do come forward and give us your name and address.
My name is Pamela Lima. I live at 6310 Plantation Forest. I agree with my neighbors here. One of the reasons, I've only lived in my house for about 7.5 years. I bought the house because it was on a quiet, very small neighborhood. No people cutting through, all the streets end, so there's no through traffic. One of the reasons I bought it. I wanted to get away from Lee's Hill and all of that cluster development stuff. That's what this neighborhood was for me. And when I saw them clearing trees, I knew it was coming. I understand growth. I don't oppose growth necessarily. I do oppose a cut through. It is definitely going to cause people that don't even live here, that don't even live in the new development, to cut through. Once they figure it out, they're going to cut through to 208. They're not going to come all the way around and go 25 miles an hour by the courthouse. They're going to zip through the neighborhood, go out to 208, make their right, head to Route 3. I see it, and I know it's coming. 132 houses will put at least probably 300 cars on our road. That's ridiculous. Our road's 25 miles an hour. It's 1.4 miles to my house. It's already hard enough for me to go 25 miles an hour every day down Plantation Forest Road to get to 208, and I really don't want to sit behind, another 30 cars to get out of the development. I think that should be carefully considered. I don't see any reason why it needs to cut through. They can go down Massaponax Church Road, come down to 208, get on 208 and go where they're going. If they want to go to Route 1, keep going down Massaponax Church Road, jump on Route 1, head out to 95. I see it as a nightmare unless there's some speed bumps, like Sabrina was saying, something to make it a deterrent for cut through for anybody that doesn't live there, because it's not going to just be this development. It's going to be like out in Stafford. There's a development out there. They cut down Courthouse Road. They cut through this poor people's houses to get to 610. And they have no speed bumps, and those poor people have to live with, it's just an immense amount of traffic. So that's my point. That's all I really have to say, is I'm concerned about the traffic.
Anyone else? Very well, then I'll call this public hearing to a conclusion, and perhaps the counsel for the applicant would like to respond to some of the comments that have been made.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, Charlie Payne with law firm Herschel Fleischer, and we represent the applicant. Just a couple of points I'll just reiterate, and just as a quick reminder, there's been for some time, plans for this particular area to have higher growth and higher density. As staff had noted, part of the property is actually within the mixed-use future planning area, so we could, in theory, ask for 2 units to the acre and more density. So we didn't do that. We wanted to make sure that what we were providing was consistent with the surrounding developments, which we've done. Also, let's not forget that this project will connect to public water and sewer, which is at the site as well and within the primary development boundary. I hear quite often how much growth is occurring in Spotsylvania County, and most recently we got with the county's code office, the building code office, and asked them how many occupancy permits have they issued over the past 4 years. That number is 1,346. That's about 330 a year. It's not a lot. In fact, last year the county's growth was about 0.9%. In fact, last year was the first time the school system actually had an increase in students. That was the first time since the Great Recession. So the county is not growing fast, and all the projects that have been approved by this Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors are long-term planning. We think this one's actually a little bit shorter term just because of the marketability and because of the, basically the vacancy opportunity that the other developments that are close by are fairly built out, if not completely built out. So the project, I think, is well planned. As I noted earlier, it was supposed to be part of Phase 2 of Plantation Forest back when Plantation Forest was initially developed. So the planning for this development and this project has actually been in place for some time. In regards to the questions about a light at the intersection of 208 and Plantation Forest, one of the first things we did when we ran into the issue regarding the Plantation Forest only access was we met with VDOT about the potential for a light warranting there. And VDOT, adamantly would not approve nor agree with us that a light would be warranted there, nor any improvements at that intersection because it's so close to the intersection coming into Old Courthouse Road and to the intersection of Courthouse Bypass. So that was the challenges there, which is another reason why we went and found another access point to alleviate those concerns. So I think that we have done a pretty good job covering that issue. And again, we provide another access point for the folks in Plantation Forest as well if they want to avoid 208. Home costs, we hear quite a bit sometimes about how new homes coming in that are of higher value somehow impact the values of the homes that are surrounding properties and other developments. Projects that put forward, like this project, average home costs that more than pay for themselves and have a net positive benefit are very beneficial to our community. As many of you may or may not know, today there's a negative number on average per capita in the county that's generated. So the cost of households actually exceeds what the revenue is being generated. So projects like this actually help reduce those cost impacts, including to the residents who are already here. So that is a very positive thing, and it should be encouraged. And again, with the desire to expand Courthouse Village and its commercial investment area, to make sure that people are eating here and shopping here and staying here just other than at lunchtime is a very positive thing, and we think this project does that. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have or something I did not cover. Mr. Chairman, that's all I have to present.
If you please, the Chair, I'd like to make a statement. I am not a fan of interconnected parcels. Not at all. I do not see the necessity. You do two things when you connect these two communities. You are going to create cut-through traffic. You are going to make both communities overload each other, and you have destroyed the identity and the integrity of these individual developments. Based on that, I will not support this.
Well, just a quick response to that. Interparcel connections are required by VDOT and by the county.
We've just been down that road. They suggest that, but it is not mandated law. And if we're disagreeing, we're disagreeing.
I won't get into a public debate about it, but it has to meet certain thresholds before they'll waive that requirement, but I won't get into that.
Well, we're going to have to go down that road because I can't support these two connections.
Well, so the two internal connections, are there stubs there now? In other words, it's clear that there was going to potentially be expansion?
Mr.
That's what it
Chairman,
appears.
It's existing right-of-way there to be
as
extended at Godwin, at the Plantation Forest Drive, and the one north of Plantation Forest as well. So all of the connections that they've shown, except the one on Plantation Forest Drive, the cul-de-sac, that will not be pushed through, but the other two are where they're showing those connections.
well, I can understand that if this was one big development, this is phase two, but I think it's been made quite apparent that this is a separate development altogether. And as I've stated before, if these two parcels connect, I will not support this.
But I believe you're forced to by VDOT. They don't have a choice. It's not, in my opinion, it's not your issue, it's the issue that we have with VDOT, and we need to correct that. I share your concern. I don't like the interconnected parcels either, and I would push back on this, but that is not the applicant's issue, that's our issue with VDOT.
Wait a second now. Where this first came up several years ago, the subdivision, and I'm going to ask the planning staff to kind of help me here, it was the Tricord subdivision that was developed off Courthouse Road, Breckenridge. And we had this same exact situation involving also emergency services, and we just created a greenway with paver blocks built in with a gate, and it addressed everything. So that this new subdivision was then just had access only on Courthouse Road, but it had emergency services access between the two subdivisions, the existing one and the new one.
And as a reminder, we just did Hill Farm. We got the same situation at Hill Farms.
Yeah. So I'm not buying this VDOT thing, because VDOT never entered into the other one. It was emergency services where they said, yes, you cannot have just one access into a subdivision, because if that's blocked, we have to be able to get in some other way. So we understood that, and we found another way.
Well, since Breckenridge was approved, there's been a change in the VDOT standard. So they adopted the SSAR requirements, which necessitates the second connection.
What happened with Hill Farm?
The issue.
We just did that.
The issue
And we
with
got
Hill
that same
Farm-
situation with emergency traffic only.
And I would support it here as well. At Hill Farm, it was a one-way or two-way. I forget if it's a one-way or two-way, but there was a gate. There's going to be a gate to prevent the traffic going through each other's subdivision, and because of emergency services. And you are correct, it's VDOT pushing this through. The applicant doesn't have a choice in the matter. They have to provide it. My point is, I would support this if we had that gated situation, again, to provide for emergency services. Otherwise, I think it's, I don't like the interconnected parcels at all. I think it takes away from the character of each neighborhood. However, it's not the applicant's issue. They have to do this. I would support it if we had gates or some other means to prevent the pass-through traffic that everybody here is concerned about.
Leon, can you explain why that with Hill Forest Farm, that it's different than what we are looking at tonight?
Well, I don't think it is any different. I think staff's position would be, we would support the interparcel connections, and the emergency services would prefer that the interparcel connector be there without a gate. They kind of acquiesce to the gated access, but it costs them a little time in terms of responses to calls if they have to stop, go through a gate or some other way.
VDOT still had to bless the one access point.
What did you, I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
VDOT still had to bless the one access point. They would have to approve of us using that one access and then having, but the difference in Hill Farm was we have a future second connection to Bragg Road. There's not a guaranteed second connection here. That's the difference. And that's where we're going to have the issues with VDOT. Correct me if I'm wrong, Leon.
How many?
If we're able to, I don't think we're necessarily able to connect, though, are we? I'm staying corrected that we can connect to courthouse.
Excuse me?
These interconnections? How many are they?
Well, let me,
No, there-
if I can, to satisfy the VDOT SSAR requirements, they have their one point of access, and then as long as you show that future connection, that actually addresses the SSAR requirements. So the county code actually requires, if there's existing right-of-way, that these interparcel connections be connected. And that's why in this situation, that's why they've shown that, is in each of those places, there's existing right-of-way, and so they're continuing that connection. What's also been proposed is there's two future connection. One is a little more unknown. It's the one here to the east. That's about 72 acres of agriculturally zoned property. Not sure if what will happen with that, but there's a future connection shown there. There's another that is shown to the.
Excuse me, is it possible to put the map back up?
Floor computer, thanks. This one here, this is the one I was saying to the north. That's about 72 acres zoned agriculture too. The other is right here, and this is the part, the village at Courthouse Commons. They have the approved preliminary plat. I think there had been some concerns that a connection there would not be allowed, that it had been proffered out as part of that rezoning. That's not correct. There had been concerns during that public hearing of having that interparcel connection, but there was no proffer to restrict it. And staff has communicated with the property owners and kept them informed throughout this process, and they have not expressed any resistance to making that future parcel connection. And like I said, this property has an approved preliminary plat for Section 1, and they have a site plan in-house right now.
So the 72 acres where the blue arrow is at the north end, then when that property comes in and they want to build 60 or 70 houses, that presumably then would only go through this new plantation woods. Would they be able to go, does that parcel then front also on 208?
It doesn't actually have any frontage. It actually is accessed by an easement, ingress-egress easement that goes through the subject property right now. And that's remaining, but what they have provided is future right-of-way. If this develops, if they want to connect, they can.
When you say they have an easement for egress access, rather, it's through the applicant's property or, okay.
Yes, sir.
Other questions? I have one additional one. I've heard it referred to by the applicant that this was going to be phase 2. I can certainly understand homeowners' concerns. Do we have any evidence that during the time the original properties, the original homes were being marketed, did they have in their marketing material that this was phase 1 and that there would be a future phase 2? Mr. Payne? Sorry. Did you hear the question?
I did not, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, that's okay. The question was, you had earlier stated that this was going to be phase 2, and from the general characteristics of the parcel being sort of horseshoe-shaped around the existing property, I could see that would make sense, but was it when phase 1 was being sold, were homeowners or potential buyers rather made aware that it was phase 1 and that there would be some additional phase 2?
We have no idea if they were made aware, but the lots were approved. The problem was it was never recorded. That was the issue.
Mr. Chair, if I can, there was an approved plan of development for this property. It expired, and with the change in the zoning, required them to come back through the rezoning process to seek this development. So there was an approved plan.
And when was that? Do you know?
I want to say in the 80s.
The 80s.
May I ask a question, please? Did staff recommend the two entrances on this are, I mean, I know you were saying VDOT, okay? Now, did you all recommend the two entrances to the applicant?
The original proposal before the application was submitted and they had their community meeting, what was presented at the community meeting was just the access through Plantation Forest Drive to Courthouse Road. That was the only access to the property. And it was from the concerns raised by the community that they went and acquired the additional property to provide the main access on Massaponax Church Road. So once it was submitted to the county, it always had those 2 points of access.
Right, so the initial plan had always anticipated, because of the right-of-way dedication, access through Plantation Forest Drive. So at the community meeting, when there were concerns raised about only accessing Plantation Forest Drive, we went and acquired additional property to put our main access on Massaponax Church Road. That's how the second access derived, although it wasn't ever originally required.
And the second access is put there because of what? Explain one more time, I'm sorry.
To address the concerns of the neighbors that only access would come through Plantation Forest Drive. So that was the original plan. It's part of phase.
Okay.
It's part of phase 2 of the
okay,
development.
Okay.
As you can see, the
that was the
cul-de-sac-
original plan, and it was there. All right, that's what would happen. And to accommodate those people who had those concerns, the applicant decided, okay, we will help them out, and we will put another access there, and so that they will not have to only use that one coming through. Gotcha.
Yes, ma'am.
At your community meeting, how many residents showed up, do you know?
Quite a bit.
So
Over
50,
30 or
20,
40,
60?
Maybe 40 or so.
I know the first time I saw this plan, it didn't have but one entrance. And my concern was for safety and emergency and also the traffic being funneled down through one entrance. This seems to me like having at least a second entrance, which turned out to be the main entrance, is a step in the right direction.
Yeah, and as I look at it, and I count the lots on the plan here, somewhere between 50 and 70, or about half of all of the lots, appear to be far better serviced by the new entrance than going through the cut-through.
Correct.
In fact, that it would take anywhere from 2 to 3 turns to get to Plantation Forest, and that would be considerably less desirable to go in that way. I certainly understand the concerns, but it looks to me to be a better arrangement, and that homes, for example, in a plantation forest, were there to be a tornado or damage from a hurricane, they could be blocked off. They could be isolated by the current only having one access to 208, that this in fact is a safety enhancement for the existing homes. And
I think you'll hear from both school systems and fire and rescue that having interparcel connections is very positive for public safety. And
yeah, we also heard about cars parking on Plantation Drive. Since that's a VDOT road, vehicles shouldn't be parked in the street, if I'm not mistaken. And I know that you're not an expert on these kind of things, but Council, is that not the case, that these roads probably should not have vehicles parked on them?
That depends on the road, but you're correct. That often is an enforcement issue. In some of these subdivisions, it is the case that cars sometimes do park within the right-of-way when there is no parking allowed, so that does become an enforcement issue rather than something else, yes.
Well, perhaps we could encourage the Sheriff's Department or whichever departments are appropriate to post reminders that people can't be parking on the street, and that in future enforcement, is necessary, as well as in the future speeding, if speeding is a problem.
I'm dense. I'm done. I'm done because let me
Go ahead.
My
clarify.
client just reminded me that the original plan was to have Plantation Forest come all the way from 208 to Massaponax Church Road. That was the original plan.
I can understand that, but once the time limit ran out, it become another issue.
All right. May I ask a question to clarify me? I'm just as dense and dumb as I can be right now. But anyway, really and truly, all of the traffic could be going through the subdivision without even that second entrance there. Am I correct?
That's correct.
That is correct. Okay.
That's correct. That's what VDOT would have approved. That's correct.
Right. And however, we say, okay, you don't want this traffic going through your subdivision, so therefore, I'll go back again. The applicant said, okay, I understand that, so we will put the second entrance in, which will take most of that traffic off of there.
Correct.
However, if the applicant didn't do that, then the traffic was going through that subdivision anyway. Am I correct?
That's correct.
Okay. I'm satisfied.
Any other questions?
Well, I think make another statement. I've lived here all my life. I know how people drive their cars, and I know exactly what's going to happen because I've seen it every time this happens. You will have hundreds of cars coming that have no business in these neighborhoods. They're looky-loos, and they will use these roads because they're there. If you build a road somewhere, a mountain full of people will just go there. And when you have these cut-throughs, that's all they've done. And I understand where VDOT's at. VDOT doesn't want to keep the highway systems up, so they deliberately institute these things to connect all these communities together so that cars will drive all through these communities and stay off the main road so they don't have to work on them because the community roads belong to somebody else. And I said before, I am adamantly against interconnected parcels, and I will not support this movement.
One more, please.
Go ahead.
But,
Am I correct?
And Mr.
All right,
Thompson, I
wait a minute.
appreciate your comments. We as applicants have to follow the requirements.
Yes.
We have to follow the ordinance, we got to follow the regulations.
If-
And when we ran into a situation where even when we were following those requirements, we said, we're going to take another extra step, and we're going to help address this issue and find a second access point. We didn't really have to do that. Although we wanted the community support, absolutely. We know the benefits of that, we know the impacts of that. But the applicant is in a position where it is doing what it's supposed to do. And we want to be above and beyond that, and then went even one step further and built the turn lane off Massaponax Church Road. So I'm just asking, don't punish the applicant for following the requirements and going above the call of duty to make this work. That's all I'm asking.
Anyone else? The chair will entertain a motion then
Mr. Chair.
related to the application.
Mr. Chair,
Oh, yes, certainly.
before you take your motion, Mr. Payne, you mentioned that your proffers included the phasing for the turn lane. Is that something you'd be willing to include prior to the boards? The language currently doesn't specifically
Current
include
language
that.
is that we're going to build the turn lane during the first phase of our development.
That language is currently not in the proffer.
Talking about the right turn lane off of Massaponax Church Road?
Correct. It says you will build it. I think your statement was that you would do it with the first phase.
Yeah, I misspoke. I thought we had changed that, but that's correct. We're doing that during the first phase. Actually, if you look at the phasing block in our proffers on page 5, concurrently with the commencement of the first phase of development is the construction of the right turn lane. Top of page
Leon, are
5.
you happy with that, the second to the bottom block on page 5?
Yes.
Okay. Thank
Knew
you
it
for
was
that
there.
clarification.
Just wanted to make sure I put it in there. Getting old, I keep forgetting things. Thank you.
Is that satisfied? What you-
And your question, please.
I'm sorry, do you have a question?
Yes, I do, please.
Please.
Yes. Am I correct, Leon, Mr. County Attorney, that if the homeowners association and VDOT would approve for transportation calming devices in that area, that could be done? Am I correct? If VDOT approved it?
If they approved it, yes.
Yes, okay, that's fine. Okay.
Thank you. Is there a motion
Wait a minute,
related
wait a
to?
minute.
Can I ask a question? Without VDOT approval, I mean, this goes nowhere, correct? I mean, you cannot move forward with this application, thinking in terms of the approval process.
Site plan approval process.
Site plan approval without VDOT approval, and without these interconnected parcels, you will not get VDOT approval. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's why we do the preliminary reviews at the general development plan stage.
You don't believe that? Is that? No, at Hill Farms, there's an interconnected parcel, but it's gated.
And we don't have any problem with that here. I just
Right.
don't want people driving back and forth.
No, none of us do. None of us do.
We're making a decision and based on a body that's not present.
I think the way the plan is set up right now, it will meet the SSAR requirements because you have to show your two interparcel connections.
It will meet the SSR requirements. However, everybody here does not like interconnected parcels. And VDOT, my fear is the applicant will not get site plan approval without the interconnected parcels from VDOT.
There you go. That's your question, exactly.
And then
And
and I
you
think
can't
the
do it.
question needs to be asked, okay, VDOT, we will provide the interconnected parcels, but we want them gated. We want them to prevent, we want to prevent people traveling through. Is that a fair statement?
Can't do that
Just-
in public right away, though.
Excuse me?
Moreover, you meet the requirements just by providing the right-of-way. Is that correct? So listening to everybody, I would think that we could do away with the actual construction of these things, dedicate the right-of-way, and then everybody can move forward. And I think it satisfies everybody's concerns here. Am I mistaken in that?
Well, if VDOT has the right-of-way, wouldn't they have the future right for them to pay for the
That's
extension
correct.
and the connections, which would put it back to unhappy homeowners?
That's correct.
The last statement I'll make about this is that the public safety individuals, fire services, and the sheriff's department encourage this connection because of the access that it provides to 208 and over to Massaponax Church Road. I mean,
Gotcha.
But again, John just said it, gated, and I think that would address the concern. In fact, on Hill Farms, I think fire and safety were happy with the gate. They didn't object to it.
Breckenridge set the tone for that. I remember that. That was probably, I've been on this commission for 16 years, and that was one of my earliest cases I dealt with. And that was the most heated part of the debate. In fact, every single case where we've had interparcel connections between residential neighborhoods, not commercial, this has always been fought. Every single case has been fought. And with Breckenridge, we came up with this solution, and it was bought into by Fire and Rescue. They were part of the meetings between between me as the planning commissioner for that district, and then the Fire Rescue, and then the developer, who was totally, just like this developer here. They didn't have a problem. They were just trying to abide by county and state laws. So I don't know of one case where interparcel connection, which has been fought against, has ever been approved. Not one case for residential neighborhoods.
Well, let's not forget that if you require that and prohibit our access on Plantation Forest Drive, part of our development can't get out. We're landlocked. Where we otherwise have a right to access.
Yes,
So-
you do.
How is it that they be landlocked? You've got it set up where everybody can come through
To the
both entrances.
southwest corridor quadrant there, only has access. There's a RPA we can't cross.
Where are we at here?
Show them right there, Kim, on the bottom left,
And you can't landlock.
There's no connection.
down to the left, yet.
You cannot landlock. I mean, you
There's the
cannot
RPA.
landlock.
Well, why can't you put that small portion and hook it up and cut the big part off? What's wrong with that?
You
Put a
lived in
gate
this
only,
neighborhood.
put a gate only on
I
that
know,
section.
I know.
If you lived in this neighborhood, yeah, you would find a way.
Yeah, gate at Oak Hill Drive.
They've made it quite clear that they would be happy, or they've made me feel that they would be happy if there were fewer homes. Not necessarily 26, but fewer than 132. So if you take this section over here, I don't know how many units it's in,
Keep it connected.
and keep that connected, and cut all these 100 houses or 98 houses, and let them all run to Massaponics. I would support that.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, we'd be supportive if you allowed access for the left, on your map that's showing, southwest quadrant to access Plantation Forest Drive. Is that Godwin?
Godwin Drive, right.
Godwin Drive, along Godwin?
How many units is that?
Problem. We'll look at it, but the problem's going to be that VDOT's probably not, we're not going to pass the we're not going to probably pass the VDOT requirements. That's the hindrance we've got.
Well,
If you join this large part with a gate, that's our God Almighty's invisible second entrance that everybody talks about, and that VDOT requires. We've got subdivisions all over this county that have these imaginary connections that have been there for 30 years. And they haven't gone anywhere, and a lot of them will never go anywhere.
Dedicated right-of-way, we can't put a gate up.
What of that concept doesn't meet the,
How have we fought that
mul-
for
multiple-
30
for the,
years?
for the
they
southwest
changed it,
parcel?
John. They told
What,
you.
yesterday?
Leon, when was it changed since Breckenridge?
No, well, what's the other one?
Wait a minute.
The SSAR requirements were changed in the last couple of years.
In the last 4 years.
That's where I was coming from, John.
And the second entrance cannot be a gated. Are we sure, we absolutely sure of that? Because we're going to tell the whole public here that we must be providing these.
You cannot gate a public road.
How are we going to do it at the other one that we got before us? Whatever.
Hill Farm?
Yes.
I believe that portion is
Private road?
it's not going to be, yeah, it's going to be private to that portion.
It's private.
That small portion that's coming down to that connection will be private.
Oh, okay.
Uh,
That's the difference.
The gated portion of Hill Farms, is that not VDOT right away?
It's county right-of-way.
It's a county right away.
County right-of-way.
This particular right away here is not county right away?
It is, until it
Okay,
gets accepted by the Commonwealth.
You have to make me believe what's the difference.
That's what he's trying to get at.
I don't see the difference.
What is the difference in Hill Farm and this one?
Could we table this and come back? This probably needs some thought,
I don't know.
quiet
Well,
time.
Maybe we could address the issue
Right.
and encourage the Board of Supervisors between now and the Board of Supervisors' actions, that they further research with VDOT these options, because I don't think we have enough questions. I think that there is consensus that many components of the application, in fact, the vast majority of the components of the application, comply with the comprehensive plan. They meet all of the general desires, with the exception of this access issue. And maybe we could, and again, if anyone wished to vote against recommending it this way, that might intensify the signal being sent beyond. But in fairness to the applicant, I would think it would be good to at least send a message along to the Board of Supervisors.
And the motion could include that, am I correct?
It could.
And that's actually what you did for Hill Farm, is you recommended
That's right.
approval and recommended that they look into that interparcel connection.
That's right, there you go. And then, okay.
Okay, so in the interest of time, then, the chair will entertain a motion to recommend approval of the application pending further research and determinations about the necessities of these interparcel connectors. And since the Board of Supervisors has final say on this anyway, they can hammer out the details. Is there a motion to that effect, or
I
would
would
some?
make that motion.
So the motion's been made. Is there a second?
I second it.
And did anyone else wish to say anything? Well, I'd
All
like
I have to say is I'm glad we had this discussion, and that because it'll be looked into. We're very confused. Staff is, you're not confused, but you're trying to make us understand. And I think now that it will go further to search into this so that we'll have more of a correct
Absolutely.
direction.
I guess I have a comment to make as well. I thought in the original thinking that this entrance on Massaponax Church Road was a positive step. It gave access for emergency, school buses, fire and rescue, and so forth. And I still feel that way. And I find this proposal, there's a great deal of positive things about it. One thing is it keeps 18% more open space than was required. I thought the community concerns, except for those expressed here tonight about traffic, the fencing and the pond maintenance and that sort of stuff, those issues were addressed. The right lane, turn lane, and the right-of-way along Massaponax Church Road was proffered, and that was a good thing. And so with that,
We know,
I
that's why
make
you've
the
made your motion.
Second call. This
Mr.
call.
Newhouse, did you have
I just want to state that I thought the applicant did a good job addressing the concerns, and there are a lot of good features in this application. The curb and gutter, the open space, the planned housing, I think is going to be a really nice development and a complement to the area. I'm just afraid we don't want to put them at a point where they don't have a choice. They had to comply with this because they just simply won't get VDOT approval. But I congratulate them for working with the public and the concerns. We need to, as a county, get this resolved. And it is not their issue, that is our issue, so.
Yeah, I'd like to add what you mentioned, also the sidewalks is going to be a major improvement. You know, one thing I want to point out that's been most refreshing is that no one has said anything about the value of the cash proffers being inadequate. We have not heard that, and as the applicant pointed out, this is probably the highest funding application, it's certainly in my 4 years on this commission, and the applicant is to be, I express my personal appreciation for that's not an issue. Of course, that doesn't mean we won't be beaten up about it in the newspaper. And another comment is that in relation to development, economic development in the courthouse area, our country and this state and certainly our community has suffered through now 7-8 years of very depressed economic activity. And the comment was made about how small business was not really being helped in the area by the new homes. One of the first projects we approved 3 or 4 years ago was the conversion of an old videotape rental store on 208 to being a vehicle service place. And I've noticed going past that, it's now in the front of the Giant there, that place is very much successful and seems to be thriving and providing jobs. That's because there's certainly homes around there and they need that. My suspicion is that as this development occurs, especially in the Courthouse Village area, And as more jobs occur in the central part of the courthouse area, that people coming out of this area, there won't be as much of a need to cut through to 208 because there's not going to be as many homes headed north as they will be headed toward the courthouse village. And they'll be able to head toward the courthouse village either via 208 or the Smith Station Road. We also heard a concern raised about housing values. And I am not aware of any application where any kind of new development that had higher priced homes didn't positively impact the value of homes, of existing homes. Now, we're not approving manufactured housing, trailers, or apartments or attached single-family homes. We're not recommending that. This is a case where quality, higher valued single-family homes are going to be added. And as the applicant pointed out, 0.9% growth over the last several years. I think it's probably only about 1% average for the last 7 or 8 years, and that equals literally just hundreds of housing applications as opposed to, and I'm surprised that the applicant would suggest that this would sell out in 6 years. I hope it does. And finally, as was pointed out earlier, this is certainly an enhancement of public safety for that area, and that's one of the reasons that I'm going to support this motion, especially the encouragement that the interparcel connector elements be reviewed by the Planning Commission. So did anyone else wish to make a comment? Then let's proceed to a vote on the application. A vote in favor recommends to the Board of Supervisors a approval of the application and that they would hopefully look at the issue of interparcel connectors. The vote is 5 in favor, 2 opposed, so the resolution passes. And thus concludes that item on our agenda. Next item is new business. There's no new business. The next item then is public comment. The public hearing has concluded. Then being no public comment, the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn. The motion's been made. Is there a second? Okay. All in favor of adjourning? We can still answer your question.
Will we be notified when you meet again about this?
The Board of Supervisors will meet to talk about the Board of Supervisors is the next step, and they will have an additional public hearing.
So we will be notified,
Yes, it'll be publicly advertised.
publicly advertised, so we won't be getting a letter like we got.
The adjacent property owners. Yes.
Okay, all right. That's all I wanted.
Okay, so the vote was taken. Did the vote record? It appears to have, and it is unanimous. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.